Okay, welcome back, and this should be part 6 and the final part, I think, for test number 3, in which we are going to go over the extra credit images, and yeah, so let's see, Great Wave, Hokusai, it's a print, it's a woodblock print, and Japanese woodblock prints were made with multiple woodblocks, sometimes as many as 50 different woodblocks, and how they managed to get the registration so amazingly tight and right is stunning. This is part of a series that were all different views of Mount Fuji. So you can see Mount Fuji here in the distance. The Grand Odalisque. So you might remember we talked about this painting in terms of romanticism. We talked about it in terms of Ang kind of representing sort of like being the counter to Delacroix, as Delacroix was very much about keeping, very much about romanticism being about painting in a loose and gestural manner, and Ang was not. But at the same time, there's much in this in terms of the imagery that is still very romantic. The kind of like the search for the other, the finding things interesting in the exotic and the exotic time periods and exotic locations, especially non-European settings. And this allegory painting by Vermeer. Well, we talked about Vermeer, so you could talk about him as an example of Dutch Baroque painting, and we discussed how this particular painting is clearly an allegory, but at the same time they feel kind of like genre paintings because they're done in his house, so they're like even though it's clearly an allegory, it is also kind of like a domestic scene. And what else did we talk about with this painting? That's probably about it. It's an example of oil painting, and Vermeer painted entirely on panels. Okay, Dispersion by Julie Moretu is also a painting, and we actually talked about Julie Moretu primarily in terms of perspective as a case of kind of like a contemporary artist who does these non-objective, they're not paintings of anything, but yet they feel like they reference perspective space. They feel like they have this kind of like organization like a perspective space, even though there's no actual clear perspective system. And then Diane Arbus, Toy in Central Park, or Child with a Toy Hand Grenade in Central Park. And we talked about this as a photograph, so you could just mention that. We talked about this as an example of control of depth of field. And, I discussed Arbus's work in terms of being important about making the subjective aspects of photography and the kind of the personal, emotional investment of the photographer being a much more important part of photography after Arbus. And I think that's it. All right, that's the end. Okay, so I think that's either part 6 or part 7. All right, thank you very much. I will see you on Tuesday for our final exam.